Facebook Fridays with John L. Scott Real Estate. We're a local regional brand in California, Oregon, Washington, and Idaho with 3,300 plus agents and brokers. We have 110 offices. It's a large franchise organization. And today on the call, we have two wonderful special guests joining us. But for the first 30 minutes, we're going to be meeting with a gentleman by the name of Greg Marcov. So Greg is a basically professional negotiator. He graduated from the Harvard Negotiation Institute in 2003, actually, way back when he went into real estate and had for a top producing team for several years in a row, actually voted top 1% in the country between 2006 and 2013. And Greg and I had a chance to sit down and talk all about his negotiating techniques and kind of training that he does with agents across the country and brokers across the country. He's an expert. He provides expert opinion on the Wall Street Journal, CNN Money Magazine, CBS, NBC, ABC, and even local journals where he lives in Arizona. Around 28 years ago, Greg came over here from Moscow, and he's made Phoenix his home. So, Greg, welcome to John L. Scott Facebook Fridays. We really appreciate your time today. And just for context, for everyone that's on the call today, you know, as I visit with all of our franchise offices in the 4 states, the first thing I hear from agents when I ask the question, why are you a real estate agent or broker, depending on what state you live in, the first thing that I hear is, well, because I love helping people. And what's interesting, though, is that helping people also has to do with negotiating, like being an expert negotiator for your client. And oftentimes, what happens is in the transaction, the fun part is, you know, finding the house or getting the deal signed or, you know, winning in a multiple offer situation. But whenever negotiation starts, sometimes what we hear from agents and brokers is that that's the negative part. And yet that's what we're oftentimes being hired to do, is be an expert negotiator for. That is what we're hired to do, is be a negotiator. That is the job. And then there's some really cool stuff as well that we do beyond that. And so Greg's going to shed some light on some key tactics and just some approaches to negotiation, and then also share a little bit about his upcoming, it's 2 days, right? We're doing 2 days with you, Greg. Yes.
It's 3 days, actually. 3 days. The virtual class is 3 days.
Yeah. So clock hour course on negotiation. So we're going to cover all that in the first 30 minutes. Greg, thank you for joining us today. Appreciate you coming out.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. I got invited into the John L. Scott ecosystem starting October, I think. October was your big conference that I spoke at, and everyone I've met in the organization has just been an absolute class act, and I've done classes for various offices. So I'm thrilled to be here. Love the organization. Love being a part of what you guys are doing.
Well, thank you very much. So what got you into, I mean, you were a large top 1% team.
Yeah.
And obviously, as a part of that, you kind of moved your way into this negotiation training business. In fact, you actually started a training company way back when out of your garage. Why don't we start there and talk about the genesis of your business?
Yeah, well, so that was, I mean, gosh, that was past life. That was my corporate experience. We were doing, this is back when Clinton years, so the 90s, right? And standards and benchmarks, standardizing curriculums across the country was a big project back then. And we started a software company that basically allowed districts to take their dusty curriculum that they all had, and then to digitize it so they can actually start to interact with it, so they can tag and align their own curriculum everything that is happening. So that was happening for about 5-6 years, late 90s, early 2000s. And then the company was actually acquired by a publicly traded company. And we pretty soon found out that it was an IP acquisition. And they pretty soon realized that they had all these sales and they had all these outstanding contracts that they wanted to fulfill or had to fulfill. They had only one person who knew how to write the software because I invented it, created it, and so on. And they laid off every single person in Phoenix. So they came back knocking real quick and they said, hey, we really need to stick around because you have all this work that needs to be finished and everything else. And I said, well, sorry guys, I just got my real estate license. I'm very serious about it. I'm going to go at it full time. You can't have me. And they said, well, what if we paid you more? And I said, okay, I'll tell you what, double my salary and paid all of it to me up front, whether I work or not, whether you need me or not. And then I'll stay around. Then I'll guarantee you I'll be available to you no matter what you need to do. And now I know the concept of negotiation. This would be leverage and backup plans and BATNA, something Harvard would call it. They didn't have any. They needed me. They desperately needed me because they had hundreds of thousands of dollars of outstanding contracts and whatnot. So that's how I negotiated my way into real estate. I got very lucky that I had income as I was starting up this business. And as I was ramping up my own production over time, that's how I ended up in real estate. As far as education, I started teaching around 2007, 6, 7. Short sales was the name of the game in Phoenix area, which of course is very negotiation heavy transaction, right? Very, very frustrating. And we were trying to learn how to do short sales, and a former business partner of mine said, hey, we should write a class because we can't find any good short sale classes. So why don't we write one, right? I mean, there's people like us out there. So, and I was like, no, I don't do that. I'm not an educator guy. I'm a real estate guy. Well, turned out I loved it. Turned out it was very fulfilling for me. And basically since then, taught the classes. And in about 2015, I transitioned full-time into education rather than real estate sales, because I just find that I'm doing it, and the fulfillment of enlightening people and people something new and meaningful is addicting, as you may know, Jacob. So yeah. That's kind of what takes us here.
Well, with your work around the country in the negotiation space, what's the most common misconception when it comes to real estate negotiation for agents and brokers out there?
Oof, most common. I would say two things. One is that everything's a negotiation, right? You're exactly right. We're like negotiation is that really gross part that just feels like really bad. That's negotiation, but everything else is just business, right? No, a real estate transaction starts with a negotiation where you meet somebody and you start to earn their rapport and you start to show them your value and persuade them that they should work with you and everything else, right? Then you negotiate with the market, you negotiate with the seller, you negotiate with the other side and third parties that come in. In other words, everything is a negotiation. And probably one of the biggest misconceptions, I would answer it this way. I would say what negotiation is. Most people don't understand it. Most people don't care. Most people think they have it. Most real estate agents, just like you said, where we started, right? Everything we do is a negotiation. I would say probably 95% of real estate professionals have never had any kind of negotiation training whatsoever, none. And not only that, but we unfortunately are in an industry where education is just not very well respected, right? So just to give you an idea, our class is $400 class, right? And real estate agents constantly say, that's a lot of money, that's a very expensive class. You can't touch a negotiation class in a real world for anything less than like $1,500, most likely more. The 2-day Harvard class is $5,000. Chris Voss' 2-day class is $4,500 and so on. And their classes are sold out in full. Why? Because education is respected in other industries, but not in real estate, right? So that's kind of a bummer, but also a terrific opportunity for those agents who are serious about their career, superior skills. It's pretty easy to stand out here, right? 95% of real estate professionals have never had any kind of negotiation training. And at the same time, 82% of buyers and sellers said that that is the most important skill they look for in a real estate professional. Massive mismatch, obviously a massive erosion of trust, but also a terrific opportunity for the real estate professionals that do want to grow and stand out.
You know, we talked a fair bit about Chris Voss and Never Split the Difference. And, you know, I'm really fond of a lot of those approaches. But what's the first, what's your kind of big first thing that you teach when it comes to negotiation with at the start of a 3-day course, for example?
So probably the biggest concept I try to get across on the table, two concepts, right? Let me talk about two. One is this. This is a quote from a gentleman named Deepak Malhotra. Deepak is a professor at Harvard Law in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And the quote goes like this: negotiation is an information game. That's what negotiation is. It's an information game. People who can get information or know how to get information or commit to getting information perform better than people who stick with what they know, right? That's number one. And as people walk away from my class, and maybe that's a better way for me to answer it,
yeah,
is when people leave the training, I asked them, I said, what are you going to change? What is the biggest revelation? And they said, more conversation, more questions, more information, right? That's probably the biggest concept. The second biggest concept, this comes from a gentleman named Michael Wheeler. Michael Wheeler is also a professor at Harvard. And Michael Wheeler gives this beautiful right brain metaphor for what negotiations are. And he says negotiations can be thought of like jazz, right? Here's why. Because when classical musicians get together and they have the score, they know what they're going to play. Jazz is all about improvisation. It's different. Yes, in one sense, the theme for every single real estate transaction is the same. Buyers looking to buy a house, sellers looking to sell, right? And it's like, well, then what's the negotiation? Well, the fact is the theme is the same, but every single real estate transaction is different. Why? What we are actually doing is improvise. Now, Quincy Jones once said that, we were talking about music before we started. Quincy Jones said that jazz musicians are the best musicians out there. Why? Because they're versatile. They can work with this kind of tempo. They can work with this kind of tempo. They can work with this kind of musicians, with these kind of musicians. They can work with anybody. That's what being a skilled negotiator is one who can negotiate with anybody, does not just have one tool, has multiple tools that can be relevant in multiple different transactions when we work with the seller, when we work with the other side, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah,
So
that's great. I love that. In this market climate, with obviously a lot less inventory, what are some negotiation tactics in this market condition?
Well, the prevalent sentiment out there that I'm hearing as I talk to real estate agents who are saying, what I see is fear, right? Now, negotiating against fear is also obviously a negotiation, understanding what fear is. Fear, most of the time, is just lack of vision, lack of understanding. It binds us, right? So a lot of agents are asking me questions like, Greg, how do I get my buyers to close? How do I get them to perform? And my answer to them is, you're asking the question wrong. The answer is, what does my client need right now? Because I know what you need. You need them to close so you can get paid. That's the wrong question to ask, though. The right question is, what do the clients need the most? What they need most right now is someone that can remain calm and not get taken for an emotional roller coaster. What they need right now is someone that can show them multiple options, someone that understands how to negotiate in this market, right? We can't negotiate face-to-face with a lot of people right now. So understanding virtual, written factors in negotiations, all of these are tools that a skilled negotiator brings to the table that a lot of agents just simply don't have, because we've never sat down and thought, what does it mean to be a good negotiator?
just have a comment here, James.
Yeah.
Greg, I'm really looking forward to attending your class. I will be attending, and I'm already signed up. And thank you for stepping in to do this for us, because this is one of those value-added items that people
No pressure,
look to us for.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But my question is well, first of all, a comment is you just brought up there that you're prepping ahead of time your people on different options ahead of time so that you can find the right avenue. But the other item that I heard here was when you look at the data or the process or the emotion, there's inflection points that come up during negotiation. And in this class, are you going to talk about, I don't know if that's the word you use, but there are these inflection points where you can press in for negotiation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, Lennox, the word already got around to me that you will be in the class, and yeah, talk about no pressure. So, but I'm thrilled to have you there. I think it's going to create all sorts of really fun interactions for us. Yes, absolutely. Most of the time, we have not because we ask not, right? That's one of the most fundamental concepts of all negotiation. Ira Glass did this American Life segment a couple of years ago. It was called the Good Guy Discount. And basically the idea there is they went around to like normal stores like the Gap and they asked for a good guy discount, right? And guess what? They got it, right? They got it. Why? Because most of the time we live in a developed world. We are, Americans and blah, blah, blah. And we don't need to negotiate. I mean, we negotiate for cars, we negotiate divorces, we negotiate for real estate, the top three that come up in every single class that I teach. But why not negotiate for more, right? Adam Grant, who is one of my favorite gurus out there right now, he's a professor at Wharton University, says that one of the biggest differences between average negotiators and great negotiators is that a great negotiator puts more options on the table, right? More doors open up for people, which is exactly, I think, what you're saying, Lennox, right? These are the inflection points. You can negotiate more here and put more options on the table and get better results than someone who never even picks up the phone, who attaches and emails it in. Worst possible thing you can do. Picking up the phone, listening, asking questions, gathering information, that's a game changer.
Thank you. Thanks, Lennox. Any other questions, Lennox?
Yeah, he's writing them down.
I can read his lips, though. It's interesting as you were talking about asking questions and how that's such a big part of negotiation. It reminded me of a lesson I learned about, when someone gives you a price, like, for example, the flea market. A friend of mine's taught me years ago to look them in the eye once they give you the price on something and say, no, really, how much?
Yeah.
Just like by asking that extra question, all of a sudden the price changed. And then I taught my little boy that once, and because he wanted to buy this old ugly motorcycle helmet. And I said, just go back. He wanted 20. He goes, Dad, I only have 10. Can I borrow 10? I said, no, go back, ask him again. And then when he says 20, say, no, really, how much?
Yeah.
And he did it, and boom, it was immediately 10. And so it's that kind of asking questions and not just, and really, it reminds me of like in an open house, getting to know our prospective client so well, knowing what they want, knowing what they don't want in the house, asking questions about their lives. And all of a sudden, those new clients think you know them better than any other real estate agent they've ever met. Just because you asked some questions, you wanted to figure out if they wanted a bonus room or they wanted a street that's safe for their kids to ride bikes or whatever, right? Like, so that's part of that negotiation as well. This isn't always just price, or this isn't always just the washer and dryer.
Yes. Oh God, you just said so many things that are just so.
Take that and
take that. But here's the crazy thing. Something you said that resonated with me in my head. There was an experiment done by a psychologist. His name is James Padabaker, and the experiment goes like this: you have two different groups of people. In one comes in and talks about themselves, right? In another, they come in and they start asking questions about the other side. But here's the key takeaway, right? The client, let's just call it the client, right, is surveyed at the end of each scenario. And guess what? They feel like they got to know you better when you asked questions rather than when you did all the talking. Now, mathematically, that's impossible, right? But that's exactly the key takeaway. And you nailed it there, Jacob. Negotiation mostly is about the right brain, is about the emotional aspects of our conversation rather than left brain, numbers, data, right? Rookie agents have one tool, money. They call and they say, what does the offer need to be? What is the money? What is this? Skilled agents, they don't lead with that. They don't lead with offers, just like you said with the boy, right? You ask questions instead. And the magic that happens here is they like you more and feel like they got to know you more when you got them talking, right? Pat Baker actually calls it, he calls it the joy of hearing yourself talk. And you can say, well, that doesn't make any sense. Who cares? What's the objective? The objective is to earn rapport and get hired for the job. That's the objective, and that's what we're here to do. So yeah, absolutely. Asking questions, it's a much, much bigger element than we ever think of.
Well, I don't know if Mitch Lomax is on the call today, but Mitch Lomax is a real estate broker with our organization. It has been for years, and actually, Mitch was a pastor in a previous life, and my wife and I went to his church, and then one day his wife and I met and talked about real estate, and here he is years later, a top producing agent out of our Bellevue, Washington office. And I remember going out to lunch with Mitch when he was my pastor, and I talked the entire time. And when I finished, I felt like it was the best. I felt like I had like he was such a likable guy, and so I said, "Man, this has just been an incredible lunch." And he goes, "James, you understand? I didn't say one word like the whole lunch, but it was just such a reminder of what you're saying, the joy of we don't get a lot of that opportunity. So when you give a client, or, when you give, for example, the agent on the other side an opportunity, right, to just talk and ask good questions, that's when the magic happens, is what you're kind of saying. Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm saying, right? Robert Potter in selling real estate services. Robert Potter says there are 3 levels to which we progress as a real estate professional, right? In terms of selling our services. Number 1, hey, I'm really awesome. You should hire me. I'm really awesome. I promise you, right? At a certain level, we graduate and we go, oh, people need context. And you go, I'm really awesome. I've got a friend in Bellevue area. His script is this. He says, most real estate agents sell 4 to 5 properties per year. I sell 4 to 5 properties per month. Right? Work with me. Well, that's pretty cool too. But what Robert Potter says is, he says the final level that we graduate to, this isn't about me. This is about you. Why are you looking to sell?
Yeah.
Are you sure that's a good idea for you? Right? And I've had agents in class, when I talk about that whole concept, right, go, Greg, I just got a listing. And I didn't know what was happening psychologically, but here's how I got the listing. Everyone came in and talked about how awesome they are. I came in, I asked questions, and the seller goes, I want to work with you. I feel like you're the only agent that cares about me, which is the portion that we should care about the most, right? So yeah, absolutely. Psychology is irrefutable on that.
Yeah. So really, negotiation is psychology.
Yes.
And you're essentially training on how to win more friends through that process. Absolutely.
Yeah, right. And Dale Carnegie, right? He says you can make more friends by you can make more friends in 2 weeks by becoming interested in others than in 2 years by trying to get them to be interested in you.
And I think a lot of us feel like maybe we're not working hard enough if we're not talking, right? Like it's almost like in that listing appointment or meeting a new client at an open house, it's almost like we feel like we have to provide all this value by filling the space with our voice. But what's interesting is that it becomes a little bit more effortless when you just start asking questions and then be a great listener.
and you're onto something very, very pivotal for the entire training. How you ask questions becomes the most important skill that you do, right? How you ask questions. Because here's the deal, right? Let's say I come in on a listing presentation with you, Jacob, and I say, hey, if you don't mind, I have 85 questions here. This shouldn't take more than 2.5 hours, right? What's your feeling on that? Whoa, calm down. I didn't realize this was an interrogation, right? Boom, your defenses go up, information is not shared willingly, and so on. So how you ask questions becomes very, very important and critical. Almost, it's not just that people are obligated to answer them. You can put them on the defensive and paint them in a corner if your questions are too aggressive. So that whole skill is, and how many real estate agents have taken a class on asking questions, right? In fact, some of our training is so old school, right? And we watch a video in class that basically argues that we've moved from a much more hierarchical to a much more egalitarian society. Therefore, how we gather information should follow that trajectory, not the authoritative. I'm a real estate agent. I'm owed these answers. Nope.
Thank you. Well, why don't you, for the last few minutes here, just tell the group about the upcoming training that Lennox will be at, and then provide the particulars on how to get a hold of you and find out more.
Sure. So the class is our flagship class. It's called C&E, Certified Negotiation Expert. There are about 70,000 C&Es in the United States in the past 12 years. And that is our main class. It's 15 hours over 3 days. Live class is 2 days. Virtual class is 3 days. We do that because we do it in 2.5-hour blocks to prevent what's called Zoom fatigue. What we do is we start by talking about negotiations in general. What is it? Some broad concepts and things like that. Then we look at the 3 different of negotiations that are out there in a workplace right now. Then we move to psychology of making decisions. If we can understand how our clients and we make decisions, put ourselves in a much better position to be persuasive and influential. Then we study something that's called the persuasion principles. This is largely based on the work of Dr. Robert Cialdini. His book Influence is the gospel on persuasion, right? So we go deep on that, and then we study asking questions, and we end with a pretty extensive role play where every single one of us will now put these skills into practice to increase retention. So the class is August 4th, 5th, and 6th. And the link, I believe, is something that you guys have shared with your students. It's $349. We discount it because it's a virtual class. So versus $399 if you were taking it live, and you get to take it in your pajamas. Although you do have to have your video on because it is 15 hours of CE in Washington, and I do have to be accountable for that. So, oh, and I see Erin. Erin, thank you for, she dropped the link in there in the chat.
Yeah, Erin threw a link in. And Erin, do you want to add anything in terms of being able to register for this course?
Yeah, that was just a link that the other Erin White passed on to me. And I also popped that in the Facebook chat because a few people were asking about the class, and we were getting some pretty good feedback.
Yeah. How many people are registered so far?
We're just over 20 right now.
20?
Yep.
Oh. All right. Well, thank you, Greg, so much for joining us. And I want you to know there's no pressure at all on this call. I did notice while you were talking that Paul Boonsma, the president and CEO of leading real estate companies of the world, is on the call today with our Zoom, as well as Steve Murray and Scott Wright. So obviously Steve Murray and Scott Wright are kind of the kings of negotiation out there when it comes to the sale of offices across the country. And so thank you, Steve and Scott, as well as Paul, for joining us today. And Greg, thank you so much for sharing a little bit about what's to come on the 3-day course. And we're really excited about that. And I'm excited that you go into the psychology of things. And it's not just, we're not just talking about obviously price and, the close, if you will, but also the growing of our businesses. So yes.
Absolutely. Your value proposition, making a relevant value proposition, all of that is going to be there. My why, Jacob, is this, and I can just end here. My why is this, and I've been calling you Jacob this entire call, haven't I?
Absolutely, but you know what? We're just going to go with it.
I'm sorry, James. Yeah, there you go. That's a faux pas. Now you just told me all the people that are watching this, and here's the guy. That's
Oh, it was actually
again.
fun to see people snicker actually when you called.
I'm sorry, James.
It's absolutely fine. Yeah, no worries.
My why is this.
I
don't teach any other classes. I get asked to teach N.A.R. classes. I don't teach any of them. This is the only class that I teach. And the reason is because I've seen this training transform people's lives, their careers. And for me as an educator, that's one of the most fulfilling feelings there is. This is the real stuff. This is stuff that's out there in the real world that we desperately need. In fact, the D.A.N.G.E.R report says that the biggest problem, which is by the Swanepoel Group, who is coming up next, says that the biggest problem with the real estate industry is we are seen as incompetent, part-time, not serious, right? We all want to work with executives who have their MBAs, and executives are looking at us and going, why should you sell my house when I'm the better negotiator? And you say, oh, dude, I go to garage sales all the time. I'm really good. That's just not going to be good enough anymore. They're expecting the same level of skills from us. It's time to level up. That's my why.
Well, Greg, please stay on the call if you'd like. Stefan has joined us, and we're going to transition to what Stefan affectionately calls a fireside chat between him and Lennox Scott. And so most of you don't even need an introduction to Stefan, but I wanted you to know that this gentleman here that's joining us is the chairman and the CEO of T360, which is a leading management consulting firm in the residential real estate industry. He's editor-in-chief of the SP 200, which is a ranking of the most powerful and influential people in real estate. He's written over 45 books and has 18 on the bestseller list with the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, USA Today, Huffington Post, CEO Read, and has been ranked #1 in 4 different categories on Amazon. So we are blessed to have Stefan join us for 30 minutes here on a fireside chat. Stefan in the past has actually done our keynote for our annual convention and is a very close friend of Lennox Scott. And so that is how we got Stefan to join us. Stefan, thank you so much for joining John L. Scott's Facebook Friday. And I'm just really excited to talk to you about our real estate industry, the market, both the recession that we're in, but also the recovery ahead, and some predictions that you might have.
Thank you for inviting me to Facebook Friday. Lovely to be with John L. Scott.
Well, thank you, Stefan and Lennox. I'm sure you have some questions for Stefan.
Well, Stefan, I just want to give acknowledgement out to you're the most in tune person of what's going on in the industry. You're so well connected. You look out ahead. Stefan and T360 put out the Trends Report each year on, I think it's like 10 major trends of what's coming up ahead in the industry. It's a must read. We look at that as an executive team at these trends because it helps us with our forward thinking. And then, of course, we ask the question, what are we going to do about it? And that's how we're able to stay on the leading edge with this type of information that Stefan brings forward. So, Stefan, we're going through transition right now, but I just want to put it out there. What do you see taking place? What do you see coming up and within the industry?
What recession are you talking about?
Yeah,
there's no recession. We clearly have. I think 2020 will clearly be remembered as a very, very awkward year, and many of us feel it's already had 14 months, and it's only now month 7. And we still have another 7 months to go. So this is also a long year. And then we still have some interesting activities towards the end of the year, right? So I think this year has its complexities, yet of all the many industries that have been impacted, and my heart goes out to the people in first responders and the hospitals and the doctors and the police and even the restaurants and the hotel business, we actually as an industry have done fairly well. Clearly we've been impacted. It's not that we haven't been impacted, but there are so many places in the country where if we just had more listings, right? If we had more stuff to sell, yes, the open houses and the tours and we've been hindered, but we've been hindered in the past, and we've actually learned as an industry that we're reasonably good to adapt. I mean, real estate professionals are awesome at coming up with solutions for problems which we have and sometimes even problems we don't have. But we've all learned to Zoom. Hi, Paul. Good to see you, Paul. So we've all learned to Zoom. We've all learned to do virtual tours. The COVID situation, the pandemic, of course, did not create Zoom. It did not create DocuSign. It did not create virtual tours. But there were certain companies, certain philosophies, certain business strategies that just maybe lucky, right time, right place, right maturity. And we've all become very good at these kind of calls. I used to do, I say used to only about last year, about 25 to 30 talks a year on stage. Now I'm doing 25 talks a month. I mean, it's just mushroom. Now, it's not the same. I'd love to go out there and give Lennox a hug. I mean, so the personal intimacy of just being able to say hi again and see somebody in the face, not quite the same as here, where you're sitting with your Zoom shirt on, but it's still the ability to touch people, whether I'm touching you or you're touching your customers. So I think that we are doing well. If you look, generally speaking, it seems like April hurt. May was a little bit better. June was almost like, wasn't it the same as last year, June? I mean, what happened? June's just about the same in most cases. And July's looking up if somebody would just decide to sell their freaking house again. So it doesn't look bad. A few of the big companies are saying that if we can continue at the pace we are, if we don't get a too big a second wave, if the political election doesn't go too strange, we could actually end this year on budget or maybe even ahead of budget. And to say that in a year where we've had riots and protests and COVID and a global pandemic and an election, that's exceptional.
Stefan, you had mentioned to me that it actually felt like an 18-month year this year?
Yes, it does. If you just think of how much many of us have done, whether it's the interaction or the call, or I still have to do my regular job, but I have to adapt for my COVID job. And then I have to go and hold everybody's hands because I'm their friend and partner and leader. And then I still have my other stuff to do. So it does feel as if you have a little bit more tasks on hand. So I do feel that we're doing not double duty, but close to double duty.
Stefan, you mentioned the end of the year. What are you hearing from executives within the real estate industry or others you've been chatting with about what's coming forward towards the end of the year?
I think everybody remains cautious, Lennox, because everybody doesn't want to be the one which jinxed the fact that we have a second wave or not a second wave, or that it's bad or not bad. But if we put the second wave or the jinxing side apart and say realistically, I think more people are positive and optimistic than people that are negative. Clearly, there are negative people, but we know them. They're here always, right? They're always making that side of the bed. But most of the people in our industry, including leaders like you, but your Berkshire Hathaway, the Keller Williamses, the Compasses, those other big organizations, the Howard Hannahs, those leaders are all very optimistic. They're very positive. They've all said that they've adapted technology more, and they don't want to say, bring it on, COVID. Of course, nobody wants to say that, but they almost have that sense of we have a level of confidence in our team. We have a level of confidence in the fact that our skills and technology has certainly improved. It would seem that the transactions are happening despite COVID. And the reasons that we're struggling, it definitely isn't because of finance. It isn't because of the rates. It isn't because of an inability to go to the house. It is generally just a shortage of homes. Yep. And maybe a slight change in needs of homes. People are saying, yes, well, there's a growing need for a slightly bigger piece of property or maybe a study. And those are all assumed deductions, which we all know came out of places like New York. I don't know if it's going to last that way. I could quickly share with you a small story. I'm blessed at the moment. I have a second home in Hawaii. I have a residence in California, but I have residence here in Hawaii as well. And we came out here just to come and do something in our house just for a week. When the pandemic broke, and my wife said, well, why are we going to go back to California? Let's just stay. So we've now been here on a very long extended stay, which was not quite actually planned and anticipated. And two of my neighbors down the street are real estate professionals with not national companies, with local companies. And both of them have said to me that the last 3 months have been the best 3 months in the year of their life. They've said, we're doing 7-figure properties, so, $2, $3, $4, $5 million properties. We're doing 1 a week, sometimes 2 a week, sight unseen, and they're cash. Now, it's a unique market. I understand it's a luxury market. But he's saying, people are saying, I want to be able to have a retreat where I can get away from maybe a New York or a Los Angeles now, or maybe a Houston. So I think we're going to see a good year, and we will not be sad when 2020 ends.
Great. There's a thank you. There's a report that T360 puts out each year, and that's the top residential real estate brands in the nation. And John L. Scott is one of those brands. Out of that top 20 list, if you take out Redfin, who has a different formula based on their teams all giving the units to one person, the production per person, there's like 4 other companies above 10, and then you drop down to 7 for a couple, and then the rest are 5 and below. But of those that are above 10 transactions per person on average, you have RE/MAX, and then you have family companies. You have Howard Hanna, John L. Scott, and Windermere part of that list. Why do you think that is?
Very complex question that you ask me there, because that requires a lot of analysis. The very large groups, again, when I mention companies, they are purely just for reference point, not for promotional purposes, positive or negative. But when you look at the very, very, very large groups, the Realogies, the Berkshire Hathaways, the Keller Williams, in many cases, their statistics become difficult to sometimes really pinpoint, because the organizations are so very, very large, and you are dividing by large numbers, and you're dividing over large bases of people where there are performers and there are non-performers. There might be ghost agents, there might be full-timers, there might be part-timers. So then the numbers actually become, I don't want to say meaningless, but they become very, very disjointed. What you find with the companies like yours, you mentioned Windermere, you mentioned Howard Hanna, these are, I almost want to say, closer, tighter knit, I want to say better run, right? Very family, very, very tight group companies, which they just have a lot of passion and commitment and drive. I think there's a lot of touching and feeling in the company, meaning between the people, the relationships are really tight. You can sense it when you go to as I thank you for the invite that I've been to before, a John L. Scott meeting, which I've spoken at, but I've spoken at a Howard Hanna event as well. When you go to those kind of events, it really feels family. There's a kind of love, there's a kind of intimacy when you go in the room. I mean, look at your video, which you put together every year of your singing and your dancing. It's just unique. It is so Lennox Scott. It is so John L. Scott, right? It personifies who you are. You don't really get that in a Realogy. The Realogy, just because it's very sized, because it's 200,000 people, it's a very, very large organization, and that creates its own strengths, but its own complexities.
Yep, great. I'll turn it back over, James.
Oh, well, thank you. So, Stefan, we talked a little bit about equality and diversity in our real estate industry. Could you touch a little bit on that?
Wow, and that's the call that I just actually came off. I would have liked to have joined you guys earlier, but we have our own Friday Fireside Chat every Friday as well. And for the last 3 weeks, before that, we were just talking to industry leaders. We had spoken to leaders of some of the companies which we had mentioned this morning, including Lennox was one of the calls. So we had rotated every week through some of the CEOs of some of the most significant companies in the industry, just to get their broad sense of what was going on. In the month of July, we decided to focus a little bit more on diversity, minorities, everything from the different races to women, to LGBT, just the complexities which comes from the minority groups. We know that the George Floyd death has sort of bubbled this up again to the top, and there are many people that are uncomfortable and feel change is necessary. And there are many companies that do good things, but as a nation, as a whole, we still have so much opportunity for improvement and growth. And I'll put myself on that guilty list and say, I don't think I've done enough. I think I can do more because real estate's been good to me. The industry's been good to me. I can't see myself in any other industry in my entire life. This is my only industry, right? I entered in it 38 years ago, and I will die in this industry. Yet when you look at many of the events you go to, whether it is association event, franchise event, independent company events, MLS event, the rooms are very, very white. They are very, very male, right? They are very, very many times gray-haired. And we need to try and find something. So T3 has said, it's maybe not our task, but it is our task, right? We all need to step up. And I think that many businesses don't always know how to step up on a big scale. They do something locally because that's where they have contact and relationships. But we don't have many initiatives that are on a national scale where John L. Scott can work together with Howard Hanna, together with Religi, together with Keller Williams, together with the MLS, together with the association. And maybe if we all pool a little bit of our resources, and it's not always money. It's, as a matter of fact, usually not the money, right? It's the mentoring or the help or the guidance or the roadmap or the assistance or the apprenticeship or whatever. So T3 is going to try, and the same way that we write a trends report, the same way we did the D.A.N.G.E.R report, which I think it was Greg that referred to that, or the almanac, which we do, we're going to try and come up with a diversity initiative that it's not ours. It'll be a nonprofit. It's something which we want to just basically give to the industry and say, how can as many people and brokerage companies work together? We are hiring a woman of color to help us with that. We have other people that can do that work as well, but we specifically felt we need to take a step forward. And when you speak to the people that are in a minority group, and immigrants, I'm an immigrant, so I'm also in a minority group, but when you come from a minority group, you sometimes look at the challenges just a little bit differently than you do if you come from privilege. So I want to make sure that if we put a charity together, that we have women and people of color in that leadership group as well to help us, guide us, to say, hang on guys, don't do that, that might not help that much, or do this because that's better. Otherwise, I might suggest something and I might be missing it completely, and I don't want to ever do that. So we have made a commitment. We've extended an offer to a person. She has accepted. She is working out her notice period with a very large Fortune 500 company where she is at the moment. She is in our industry, has been in our industry 20 years, has been very much involved with fair housing and financing and Freddie and Fannie kind of stuff. So I think it's somebody that is going to join our leadership team in the next 3 or 4 weeks. And Jack and I have been working on putting the guts together of an executive summary, which I promised Lennox that I would share with him in the next couple of weeks, as soon as we sort of dot our I's and cross our T's. I'm in the process of creating a nonprofit, which I am going to, I also said that I would fund it to the tune of 6 figures just to get it off the ground, just to make sure that we can pay whatever needs to be paid. So there's nothing outstanding. I want to hire the person. I've got trademarks, which I want to donate to it. I've got some domains, which I think would be very suitable, which I want to donate to it as well. Put it all in there. And then I want to share it with, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 big leaders in the industry like Lennox, get their intake, go back to the drawing board, clean it up a little bit, get it ready, and then hopefully launch it at the beginning of next year. And hopefully, if God willing, it becomes a national initiative. Our goal is to see is, can we possibly help? I just put a number out there. I said, how about if we could possibly help 10 people per day, every day for 10 years? And it was just a number. It's not a magical number, and that's about 40,000 people. But I said, if we could collectively help people that can't do it themselves to enter our industry and create a successful life for themselves, and hopefully also buy homes and then give back. I mean, what a great legacy to be able to say, you know, I helped 10 people or 20 people or 30 people, whatever the number is. The number is not important. It's just making the difference. Yeah, so I'm very committed, very passionate about that.
I think the big shift here is this isn't a checking a box thing anymore. This is it's time. And Joel Singer, actually, he was on our show a few weeks back and reminded that access to housing is fundamental to equality, and that we all play a role in that. But as a part of that access to housing, there's laws, and like, for example, I think it's Article 34 in California, talking about putting every single affordable housing up for public vote in each and every town, and how, of course, when it goes to public vote, it gets pushed out and moved to a different area where the town wants the affordable housing to be placed, and not in the kind of the central area of town, and just the power of all that, and our role in that as an industry. So having you put those things in place and being committed to that and showing that just is a huge part of moving our industry forward.
Thank you. I think that if not all, the majority of people know what's right. I think the majority of people want to do what's right. And we feel in our hearts, that this is not right and that should be done. But we don't quite know how to step up, where to step up. And before you know it, life, you always say life happens and you go on with stuff. I want to try and see if we can come up with an idea which would be a very easy give or a very easy participation, where we are, if you want to do something, there's a vehicle or an opportunity where you can just put your hand up and you can step up for whether it's an hour or a week or a month or $10 or $100. Doesn't matter what it is you want to step up. Because if every agent in our nation does something, we can change the world. We can change the world.
Yeah. Well, Aaron, I think we have a question out there with our Facebook group.
Yeah, definitely. So kind of looking down more on like the agent level of things, do you have any recommendations or thoughts on how agents can be moving this conversation forward in their own careers and lives?
The diversity one?
Yeah.
Aaron, I don't know if I can answer that because it is very complex. I've been talking to many of the associations in our industry that have done probably more than most. So whether it's N.A.R., the Asian Association, the Hispanics, the N.A.R.E.P., or the African American, which is the Real Estate Broker Association. And I've also found out that there's a Chinese Asian Association and a Filipino and a Vietnamese. And many of these, we don't even know they exist. And most of them do allow anybody to become members of their association. So if it's the Asian Association, like the group I spoke to this morning, was Jim Hung and Hope Autel, they even said that anybody can become a member. So I think if somebody wants to really already start doing something positive or wants to just find out more, or connect with those associations of color that are across the country. I think most of them, I think the Asian Association said they were in about 41 states. So, I mean, they're almost nationwide. They said to me this morning, of course, that many of the gateway cities like San Francisco, Seattle, Vancouver, Los Angeles, Boston, New York, of course, is where the majority of immigrants tend to come into. But once they find their feet, once they become comfortable with credit scoring and financing and home ownership, which they did not necessarily have in their country of birth or origin, they then tend to move. And she was actually saying that there is a large portion of those people that come into the gateway cities which would pick other places which we might not consider. They mentioned Houston, they mentioned Charlotte, right? Places which you wouldn't think Charlotte is a high Asian community. So I think getting involved with your local chapter of those associations of color where you have an affinity with, a love for, a passion and understanding, speak a language, would like to speak a language, or think you can work with them.
Stefan, this is Lennox. The industry keeps evolving. What do you think? We're seeing some trends right now, or what's coming up ahead that we should have our head up, take a look forward?
Technology continues to play a major role, Lennox. It has for many years. So many people feel that technology has run its course. I don't think it has run its course by a wide margin. It is just different pieces of technology at certain times. So we might at some stages, 20 years ago said, well, it's all about the back office. Then it was all about the front office. Then it was about CRM. And then it was about portals and aggregation. And then it was about individual websites. And then it was maybe about augmented reality. And then it was maybe virtual tours. So we've gone through many iterations of technology. Probably at this point in time, I would say it's still platforms and one-stop shopping, trying to get the whole transaction woven together so that you don't have these different silos of information, trying to get them better together. Some companies like yours and some others have done big strides in that way. But as an industry, excuse the word, we still suck. I mean, we're not good at it as an industry yet. We're still far away from it. Individual companies, there are certain lights where you can say, this leader gets it, this leader gets it. So I think platforms is still there. If I look at our new contracts, our big contracts where companies come to us and ask us to work, we're getting an increasingly amount of requests about artificial intelligence. And not just a very basic artificial intelligence where Facebook recognizes that you should have a friend here or this is your face, right? But the advancement of that, we've seen some of that in machine learning, which has popped up with companies like Real Scout, right? Where they look at the photos. So some of that machine learning, artificial intelligence has started creeping in. Ojo Labs doing great work in that respect as well. So there's a number of companies which we see some exciting stuff. Blockchain pops up, but still at a very, very early stage. You tend to hear that a little bit more in the media than you actually see it in reality. It's not quite there yet. But we've had a very large MLS come to us and said, if we were to totally redesign our entire MLS from the ground up over the next 2 years, could we use blockchain? How would it even work? So we have at the moment probably 3 big clients. If I say big clients, I mean, 8-figure, 9-figure turnover companies that do sales volume that are at least at the early stages of pondering. They don't have a solution yet.
Well, you have Mark Leswing, part of your team, who knows a lot about blockchain. I assume he's your lead on that.
He is, yes. I think Mark is delightful. I think he's knowledgeable. And many of you would know him as the former Chief Technology Officer for N.A.R. for more than a decade. But in the restructuring that took place about 3 years ago, when Dale Stinton left and Bob Goldberg took over, they looked at some of the initiatives and they decided that they were going to scale the part of the business where he was involved down. So unfortunately, he sort of left N.A.R., but that made him available to me. And he was busy with 1 or 2 blockchain projects on his own, which he wanted to finish off. And when he finished those off towards the end of last year, we made him an offer to join us in a very senior capacity. And we promoted him just this week to CTO, to specifically head up blockchain and artificial intelligence for brokerage companies and MLSs. Yeah.
Great.
You will, if you guys would like to look at technology, may I recommend this, and I'm not selling anything, but go to Real Estate Almanac, one word, no hyphen, no misspelling, realestatealmanac.com. And it's all free on the website. That is the electronic version of this monster. Now, this is the hard copy version, 450 pages. But you can go to the electronic version, and there are multiple sections. The first section is all about leaders. People like Lennox are in there, but leaders of all the companies. Then the second section is organized real estate. That's the MLSs, the associations. I'll jump over section 3. Section 4 is all the holding companies, the franchises. Paul Boonsma's leading REs in there, Realty Alliances there. So Cartus is in there. Any of the relocation companies are in there. Section 5 are all the biggest brokerage companies, which is the one which Lennox referred to just now. Section 3, we try to get our hands around technology in our industry. It's the tech section. We believe that there's roughly 2,000 to 2,500 technology providers, companies, websites, products, and services being used in our industry at the moment. So we try to get our hands just quickly around them. We identified about 500, which we felt were good ones. Then we put them into different buckets. We came to the conclusion that we as realtors, we as real estate agents, we as companies use 64 different types of products. Not products, but 64 different types. Back office, front office, lead gen, management, CRM, right? Different offices. So we went then and try and see, could we find the 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 best providers in each of those buckets? And we put those names in for you. We did not rank them yet. We did not grade them yet, but these are ones which have cash, have money, have clients. Their website works. We did look at most of their software. We got free copies. We were able to do demos and tests. So the ones we put in there, we're fairly confident to say, those are the guys which you should get in to come and do a demo for you. What we're going to try and do for next year is we're actually going to try and evaluate every single one of them and actually give you our take next year. It's just an enormous task because it's always changing. But go to section 3 on Real Estate Almanac. I think there are 87 unique different technology companies that are placed in 64 categories of services that you could use.
Phil McBride, our COO, has a quick question for you. Phil, can you unmute?
I can, yes. So, Stefan, I appreciate the almanac. I've got my copy here. I love it. Thank you. On the trends, you know, do you see any buyer or seller behaviors changing as a result of COVID? Things that, you know, they used to do, kind of old-time real estate kind of stuff, and are they doing things differently? And how can we as an industry adapt to the new behaviors that consumers are going to have?
Interesting question. I see two parts to that answer, if I may, so I'll try both. The first part is, do I think that there is some behavioral changes amongst buyers and sellers, and probably predominantly buyers, in their potential buying habits? I think so, and I do think that the distancing, work from home, work from anywhere, remote, video, larger space, study at home, maybe a larger piece of land, maybe I don't have to live in that box on the 22nd floor on 6th Avenue in New York. I think some of that is going to blow away, but I think there's going to be enough that will actually call it a trend that will stick. Clearly, I think once COVID goes away and there's a vaccine out and everybody feels healthy again and we're going out to Ruth Chris to have a dinner and we're hugging everybody, then that strong desire might go away a little bit. But I think there's enough people that have concern about an elderly growing population, which I include myself in, but an elderly growing population. Plus, of course, you know, grandkids and kids which say, oh, well, they're going to go to school, they're going to bring it home, and we have multi-generations either living in the same house or close by. So I do think that there will be a move, which is not a new movement, but a continuation towards maybe moving less to the cities, to larger properties, more versatile rooms, specifically rooms which can be used for a study. I mean, I'm so tired of looking at people's microwave behind their back that, you know, we should change that. So I think so. I think it'll stick. I don't know if it'll be big. I don't know what percentage. People have asked me to guess. I really, really don't know, but maybe a 10, 15% impact, not much more. My guess, very guess.
Thank you.
Then the second part might be, there's your grandkid behind
That's
you.
very cute.
Cool.
Shopping cart.
The shopping cart, yes. I'm going to Amazon. I don't think that the iBuyer business model is dead. Clearly, they got put into hibernation for 90 days during the time which we stayed at home. Most of them have opened back up. We would have to see whether their opening back up is going to prove to get to the numbers which they had before. We haven't seen that yet. But I'm optimistic enough that the ones which are opening up have fairly deep coffers, and they are definitely going to try. So I see no reason that the iBuying concept is dead by any stretch. Maybe it had a little bump in the road, but I think it's going to be with us, if not forever, at least for a very long time.
Yeah, we feel the same way. And by the way, I want to give some props up for having the grandchild come running by right at the right time as we're talking about consumer trends and so forth. So right on cue. He did a great job.
Very appropriate.
Thank you, Stefan.
On cue.
Well, we're running out of time here. Lennox, do you have any final question to wrap us up?
Well, I just want to acknowledge Stefan and Jack for running T360. Your personnel has been so helpful to us that we've called upon them for executives, also for technology with Travis, and of course, our friendship with Mark. You really accumulated, and you're a real energy source for the industry and helping us all move forward. So I just want to put out that thank you to you and your team.
We are honored to be your partner in the background and serve as your SEAL team whenever you need us.
All right.
Well, on behalf of John L. Scott, the Facebook Friday team, Lennox, and Phil, Stefan, we just really appreciate your time today. And I'm so sorry that you're bunkered down there in Hawaii, but this will pass, and you'll be able to leave Hawaii at some point. So it makes sense now. I'm looking at, I think, a golf course behind you there.
Yes, it is the 8th hole. Yeah, and I don't even play golf. Not yet.
Oh, not yet. Exactly. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm sure we'll have you back soon if we can grab some time with you to talk about a full steam recovery. So
thank you very much. And to all of you, I've been looking at some of the faces: Aaron, Scott, Dan, Barrett, Paul, yeah, James, Greg. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day and have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, moderators. Have a wonderful weekend as well. And we'll see you same time, same place next week at 11 a.m.